Hey guys, Hayden here again from Alarm System Store, and today we're going to be going over some commonly missed features of these systems. So today I'm working with an IQ Panel 2 Plus. You may have a 4 if you happen to get one from our website. Basically, the 4 is the current model, the 2 Plus is the previous generation, which has now been discontinued. However, the firmware and everything is pretty much on the same level, so they almost operate exactly identically. So basically, I'm just going to chapter this out into a few different major points that I want to cover. So I'm going to bring the camera over here, and we'll be right back. Alright guys, so here we are at the IQ panel. Like I said, we're going to be going over some commonly missed features or settings that are in the panel programming, and this video is just to kind of bring those to your attention. We're not going to be going over anything super specific. It's just a few things that over the course of a couple years of tech support with these panels, some people just happen to miss them because they're not very obvious. And as I mentioned before, the manual for these systems is quite long, so reading through every single feature and option, whatever the case might be, can take a good while. So these are the ones that are kind of the most important, or the ones that will be changed the most by people. So the first one is explained in the user manual, but basically these panels come with a set of videos that you can pull up at any given time that basically give you a rundown of how the system works. So under the messages section, you click the envelope up there. You'll see the second option on this page is video tutorials. Now there isn't any videos as far as like programming the system goes here, but all of these videos are very useful for user settings. So understanding how the panel works, how to arm it, disarm it, how to set off panics, use automated devices, things like that. It basically has these short videos in here, and I'll just click on one to start. We click on the overview. As you can hear, it plays a little song, and it's basically just a video player that is on the IQ panel. And it just runs you through some nice features and gives an overview of how the panel works and what you can do with it. So as soon as you get your IQ panel, if you're looking at getting one, or if you have one already but haven't watched these, it's a good idea to watch them. I mean, absolute worst case scenario, it just teaches you things that you might already know. However, some of these lower ones, like the system tests and the photo frame, user management, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of that people don't get into commonly whenever they're first putting in their panel, or even people that have used one for a good while. So it is a good idea to just come in here and check these out. But moving on from there, we're actually going to go into the advanced settings of the panel. So pull down the drop-down menu, click Settings, go into your advanced settings. And we're going to use the installer or the dealer code. So once you get into the advanced settings, we're going to go into the installation menu. So this first layer menu is where I'm going to focus a lot of this video on, because it shows the installer settings, the Siren and Alarms settings, and the security and arming settings. Now, some of these you may have had to change to get your panel up and operational the way that you wanted it to. However, a lot of people don't know that the options in these menus exist just because they've never had to go in here and do this. But essentially, we're going to go into the installer settings first. So once you get in here, basically, there is a good chunk of this that you don't want to really mess with, just because the default settings are generally the best. But you're welcome to go through and check it all out if you want to. But if we scroll down here until we get to the general settings, as you can see, they're separated by the little green lines there. These are general settings. So some of the general settings that are nice to use are you can enable or disable the LED indicator. So if you have this in a bedroom or whatever the case might be and the LED bothers you, you can disable it there. You can enable or disable 6-digit user codes. So some people like this. Basically, it changes the 4-digit user codes to a 6-digit format. You do need to go into the user codes after you change this and update them to what you want them to be. However, for those of you out there that desire 6-digit user codes, that is where you change it. So you can scroll down even further. There's a bunch of little options here and there, but I'm just going to cover the ones that a lot of people may be interested in. So the next thing I want to cover is partitions. So if you want to have multiple partitions on your system, you come in here and you enable the partitions button right there. Now, if you're unfamiliar with partitions, basically partitions are sections of the system. By default, everything is on partition 1. If you enable partitions, however, you can set up a second partition so that it basically acts as its own system. You can assign a keypad, a secondary keypad, and some sensors to partition 2, and basically partition 2 acts as its own complete system while still attached to the main unit. Those of you that are out there that may be familiar with it, this is where you enable that. If you're not familiar with partitions, although it does sound interesting to you, I do recommend going into the manual of the system and finding the section that talks about partitions so that you understand how they work. But if you want to enable it, that's where it's at. Now there are some other things here as well that I want to show. So under page configuration, you can actually checkmark what pages will show up on your home screen of your panel. So the security page, you can actually disable that if you don't need to arm or disarm the system. Sometimes these IQ panels are used for basically wellness systems where they just log people coming in and out of the building, especially elderly people. And by using the check-in and check-out feature, you can see who all's left and who all's come back, so on and so forth. That way you know to look for anybody if they have not checked back in. Moving on from there, you can enable or disable scene support, which scene support is, I'll show you real quick. If we go home, this little section down here, if we click on this gray button, you can set up a home, away, asleep, and a wake up scene, and that basically tells the system what to do with multiple aspects of it. So generally, if you click away, then it's going to arm everything, turn on your motions, arm the system in away mode. However, you can assign a few other features to that away scene, such as automated devices, so that they perform a specific action as well. Like I said, I'm not going to get too in-depth on that, but essentially, if you want to start playing around with that, that is where you set that up. And going even further down from there, you're able to enable whether your IQ remotes can stream live video from your alarm.com cameras. So all IQ panels can stream video directly from alarm.com video cameras. This option enables your IQ remote additional keypads to do so as well. And the last one in this section is the IQ Wi-Fi dashboard. So I have that one active. I'll show it real quick. But if you go to the home screen, it basically gives you a new home screen page where you can view and manage your Wi-Fi access. So down here on the bottom right, you can run a speed test. If you have a guest over and you don't want to give them your real Wi-Fi password, you can have them scan this QR code here, or right below that, it gives the guest ID and the guest password so that they can sign into your account or use your Wi-Fi on a guest account, basically. So under the middle section here, you'll see my name, and that's because I have my phone hooked up to the Wi-Fi that this device is connected to as well. If I wanted to, I could click this pause button, and basically that shuts off the Wi-Fi for my device. So you can do that with any Wi-Fi device as long as it is enrolled on your IQ Wi-Fi. So, for example, if your child has a bad habit of staying up too late playing video games, you can disable their Wi-Fi, and that will essentially shut down any online services that they can use with their gaming console. That's just an example, but you can do that with any Wi-Fi device. You can pause it and you can resume it at any given time. Now, through the IQ Wi-Fi, you do get more options. This is kind of just a quick reference, so if you need to, pause something and you happen to be near the IQ panel, you just click it right there on the screen and you're good to go. And then on the left, you get the option to view your network map. So I don't have a whole lot connected here. Basically, I just have the internet and then a single device. So that's all it's showing there. But essentially, if you have a bunch of devices connected to your IQ Wi-Fi, it will give you a tree that shows you the connection to all your devices. And then you can actually reboot all the devices' connections. And then you can also force the IQ Wi-Fi to check for updates from that page as well. So some neat things there, but moving on, if we go back down to where we were, IQ Wi-Fi dashboard, there we go. So under the IQ Wi-Fi, if you do have one of those, there's a few additional settings here. So you can enable or disable the IQ Wi-Fi security network, reconnect, which basically means if you have an IQ Wi-Fi, there's a specific SSID that IQ devices like your panel will connect to, and that kind of keeps them separate from your standard Wi-Fi connected devices. You can enable or disable this panel's ability to reconnect to that security network rather than just the standard IQ Wi-Fi network. You can choose whether or not to show managed devices. So this kind of has to do with settings that are on the IQ Wi-Fi itself. So I'm not going to get too far into that, but basically, like it says, you can manage devices hidden on IQ Wi-Fi profiles. So if you want to see them all on your IQ screen, if you do keep this like on your desk or somewhere close to you at any given time, it's a good idea to have everything show up on here. And you can also unpair the IQ Wi-Fi if you desire from this menu as well. Now, moving on from there, there is some jam detection settings that you can enable. Basically, I've never personally messed with any of these. We don't have too much interference around here. And as long as you're using PowerG devices, you should never have to do this. PowerG is the most encrypted wireless frequency for alarm systems to date. So unless somebody comes up with something that can jam PowerG devices, I wouldn't worry about this. However, if you are using legacy devices, it is a good idea to enable jam detection, and then you can play around with the settings there. Those legacy sensors and systems like SimpliSafe and a lot of the systems that are connected using weaker or unencrypted wireless signals, it is a good idea to have the jam detection on, because even if you do get jammed, the panel will be able to at least tell you that that's happening so that you can respond accordingly if you're available. Moving on from there, you can adjust some of the auto learn settings, which basically, if you want to be able to enroll new sensors as the master user, you can select this option here. And that way, when you go to the advanced settings, you type in the master code rather than the installer or the dealer code. You can show open and close reports allow for auto learn. That basically enables when you're adding a sensor in auto learn to just move the magnet to and from a sensor and it will pick it up. You can also enable and disable the panel glass break and the motion detectors for these panels. So IQ Panel 2 Pluses and IQ Panel 4s come with these two features enabled. Basically, it has a built-in glass break that listens for the sound of glass breaking at any given time, and the motion detector will be active whenever your system's in away mode, so it basically acts as an extra 2 sensors for your entire system. Now, there are some grayed out settings here. The main thing is the panel ambient noise detector and then some settings for that. Now, personally, I'm not sure exactly how that works. That might be a feature that's only available on the IQ4. So if you have an IQ4, I would come in here and check that. I'm sure the manual talks more about it, but because I can't do anything with it on this panel, I'm not going to go into it too much. There are some PowerG settings, and then there are also some reset settings for the panel as well. So right here you can see there's a reset for deleting all of the security sensors on the panel, delete for erasing all the Z-Wave devices, and one that erases all user data for the panel. So if for any reason you have to, recycle your system, or you're moving to a new location and you're going to kind of reset things up, or even if you're just kind of opening it up for somebody that's purchasing your home and you just don't want your current security settings to all be still on the panel, you can come in here and basically erase everything that is on the system. Now, there is only one reset that is not mentioned here, and that's because it's only mentioned in the dealer settings, and that is the actual master reset for the panel. If for some reason you need to perform the master reset on the panel, you do have to use the dealer code, and that actually defaults the panel back to as if it were a fresh factory rollout. So it erases everything as well as updates, and basically you're starting with a fresh IQ panel from the date that it was manufactured. So generally that's not required on these panels, but if for some reason you're having extreme issues with the panel and you want to just try a reboot, just remember that you have to use the dealer code to get to that option. All right, so going back here, we're going to go into the Siren and Alarms section and just cover a few things there. All right, so in the Sirens and Alarms section, the first options that you'll see are panel siren, siren annunciation, fire verification. Basically, this allows you to kind of customize the siren experience of your panel. These IQ panels come with speakers that allow for up to 95 decibels of output, so those by default are all set to on. So anytime your system is triggered, you'll also have that 95 decibel siren going off in the panel. So you can come in here and kind of customize that if you want. Scrolling down, there's a severe weather siren warning. So basically, if you have severe weather in your area and you're connected to alarm.com and you get those weather updates, if you happen to have severe weather, the panel will actually sound the siren a little bit to let you know that, hey, there's severe weather coming. You might want to take cover, you know, if it's a tornado, whatever the case might be. But basically, it's just an alert to let you know that severe weather is coming. You can adjust the siren timeout as well, which is this option here. The standard is 4 minutes, but if you want your siren to go off longer, you can do that. Just know that anytime a siren is going, it is using more battery for these panels. So anytime the 95 decibels is running, it's actually pulling power from the backup battery to run that at full steam. So you can kill your battery a little bit quicker and cause, basically, if there's no AC connected, it will cause the battery to die sooner, which would then kill your panel as well. So just keep that in mind whenever you're setting that up. Generally, I don't recommend putting it on for more than 8 minutes at a time. Anything over that, you kind of run the risk of draining the battery too quick. Down from there, you can enable water, freeze, and temperature sirens. So if you have those sensors, you can decide whether or not the siren will go off for those. You can decide whether the panics on the panel trigger a siren or not. And then the very last option is similar to that option we saw in the last menu, where it allows the master code to access the siren and alarm settings. So basically, if you enable this option, you don't have to use the installer or dealer code to get to this menu. It allows the master user code to access this menu. And the last section that I want to cover real quick is the security and arming, because this one does have to do with a lot of installation stuff that people may miss if they're not, reading the manual carefully. But basically, this is where you can kind of customize the security settings for the panel. So in this menu, this one has a lot of settings that you don't want to change, just like that installer settings menu, such as the swinger shutdown and the panel tamper. You don't want to disable those. Moving on from there, there are a few settings in this little menu that may be of use to some new installers. Secure arming, which requires a valid user code to arm the system. There's force arm, refuse arming when battery is low. So if you're not on AC power, you can set it so that it can't arm if the panel's dying, which is a good idea because you don't want your system dying in the middle of an arm. But you can enable or disable auto bypass, auto stay, arm stay, no delay, auto exit time extensions. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, and they also do have a little sentence down below that basically tell you about what you're changing. So like, for example, auto stay. If arming away and no delay door is open, system assumes you are still inside and changes arming to stay mode. So if you're familiar with arming most panels, basically they have a feature where you have to open and close a delay door, and that's what tells the system that you left. So if you don't do that, then the panel arms in stay mode, and it doesn't activate things like motion detectors. If you want it to always arm away whenever you click the away button, you can disable that. However, I would recommend keeping this on, because if you arm away at nighttime and your motions come on and you're going to bed, you're going to have to get up, you're going to have to disarm the panel. And if you have central station, you're also going to have to deal with them and possible dispatch as well. So I don't know if I would change that one personally, but that is up to you. So you can just scroll down through here and set any and change any options that you may or may not want. The ones that I really wanted to hit on here are the delay timers though. This menu is the only place you can change the delay times for your sensors. So this applies to like that delay door I just mentioned. But basically there are two options for delays. You can have normal delays and long delays. Whenever you're setting up a zone, you choose whether it's going to use the normal or the long delay. If you need to change those delays for any reason though, you can come in here and under delay timers, you can actually set what the normal entry delay is and then what the normal exit delay is, so that any sensors set to the normal delay will use these times. And the same thing applies to the long entry and exit delay. You can see the defaults here are pretty standard. 30 second is the normal entry, 60 is the normal exit. The long entry delay is 100 seconds and the long exit delay is 120 seconds. Most panels are fine using those default settings. However, if you have a very long walk to get to your keypad, you may want to increase your entry or exit times. That way you don't cause yourself any false alarms on your panel. Those are the main ones I wanted to cover in this section though, because this is the only place that you can change those delay settings. So, but that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of give a rundown of what settings can be changed on this panel, because I do get a decent amount of questions, basically, you know, how do I do this, how do I do that, is this possible? And basically, like I said, the manuals for these systems are all incredibly long, and the user manuals don't touch on any of this stuff in this menu. So for those of you that are thinking about putting an IQ panel in, or if you just put in a new one recently, this is where you can change those settings. But that's pretty much it. Just wanted to cover a few things that are commonly missed on the panel and show you guys where to find them. Like I said, all this information is in both the install and the user manuals, so you're welcome to go read those. However, they are very long manuals, so hopefully this kind of pointed you at the more prevalent settings that you might want to change. If you're interested in getting an IQ panel, come check us out at alarmsystemstore.com. We have the IQ Panel 4s, we have the IQ 4 hubs, and we also have the IQ 4 NS, which is the IQ 4 that uses apps to control and program the system. So that one's pretty interesting. And if you happen to have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help point you in the right direction. So outside of that, if you don't mind, leave a like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one.